Hello there. Just gonna wait for some more people to show up here before I really start in. Go in and check a few things here. Okay, those vanish as I expected. Hey there, Bounty. Okay, so I guess I can go over a bit of what I've been learning lately. Some of these new tools that I've been working around with. The one I'm working around with right now is called Gaia. This is a sort of terrain helper for Unity. And so far I'm still kind of getting used to it in some ways, but I really do like it. It makes things a lot easier because, let's see here. If I go into the terrain here, you can see here that I've got sort of this brush here and then this sort of selection of them here. And a lot of these range from kind of okay to pretty much useless, but so it, making terrains in Unity has never exactly been something that I've enjoyed, which is why I've been trying to model them by hand until now. But this takes a lot of the problems out of it. This does is instead you have these stampers here, and you can see it kind of shows you what it's going to look like, and it just builds these. It just creates these from a simple height map texture. And you can move these around. If you take off ground base, then you can also move these up and down as well. Yeah, you can control the height, the width, and then basically once you're happy with what you've got, just go in and click stamp, and it just automatically puts that onto the terrain for you. And you can see here a little bit of an oddity. It's taken the texture that was there and essentially just moved it up. But again, that's something that this takes care of. In here you have a texture spawner, which this is really handy. This just lets you apply the textures just according to certain rules that you can set in here. Let's go ahead and click spawn. It'll take a little bit here because it just needs to calculate everything. In just a moment. And there we go. And yeah, you can see now how it stops the grass texture right before it hits the slope. And yeah, making caves in Unity is still hard to do because just of the way that the terrain system works. This is all this stuff here is this is just a painted on height map. So if you were to look at what's controlling the modeling this terrain, it's just a flat image. So, you know, you can't really create things like overhangs, at least without making like a custom model yourself and just placing it on the terrain. But, you know, actually after you have this done, it's not too hard to go in and do that. But also, what I've been toying around with is that this comes with a bunch of pre-made stamps. However, I've been using some ones that I managed to create. This one right here, and then also this one, which I've just been using for the ground. These are both height maps that I created, and actually doing so was pretty easy. I just go into Blender here. If you see this thing right here, well, that's what these mountains are. It's literally just this. And how that's done is that you just create the base model, just something with kind of a difference in height. You can add in some small details and whatnot in it. And over in the material, just need to do is make sure that this is shadeless for one. And then in the textures, you go into type. Normally it goes for image or movie. Just go to blend. And then you also need to make sure to set the alpha value to something solid on here. And then once you've done that, from the mapping, you select generated and have it do so purely from the Z axis, which is in here the Z axis is up and down. In Unity, the Y axis is up and down. So that's something today you kind of need to get used to between the two programs. And once you have that, set up a camera, put it into orthographic mode. That way it'll essentially view this as a sort of flat plane. Like if I were to go into here, yeah, this is what orthographic view looks like in the actual editor. But yeah, you just do that and click render, and boom, there you have that. And then once you're in here, Gaia has this little thing right here. This is the scanner. And for some reason it puts it all the way up here. But all you need to do is just take that height map that you just created, drag and drop it onto here, and then this lets you turn it into one of their terrain stampers. So you kind of get a best of both worlds in here in a way. You know, you can have sort of the efficiency of Unity's built-in terrain, but then you can also have sort of, the flexibility of, essentially using your own models with it, and just, having those, stamped into the terrain yourself. And yeah, it defaults it to this sand texture. And also, one other thing that I figured out. If you see this terrain, this is not using Unity's default terrain material. This is using essentially a variation of the toon shader that I've been using. Because you can see it has, bright colors, but it also has some rim lighting. And also it has support for bump maps. And this, again, was not too hard to do, actually. Let's go into settings for this. You go material, custom terrain. And for some reason it gives you this error here. Just ignore it because it doesn't... it's kind of lying to you. And if I just go to this, you can see here I've got the toon ramp and I've got the rim ramp in here, but you can't see the textures. And that's just because of the way that Unity does this. Just open up Visual Studio here any minute. Come on, start up. You can do it. I just love Microsoft products. They're so efficient. Hey there, Kyo. I am just waiting for this to load. Any minute. I think it's almost there. Is it? It's coming. Come on. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Come on, bring up my code. And what the heck's it doing now? Oh, come the hell on. Okay, one of them loaded. Here we go. Okay, finally. I don't care. Go away. Okay, so this is all that's inside of a terrain shader for Unity. And right here you have a control. This is what essentially sets everything. This works as what's called a splat map. So it controls what colors and features go where. And then you got a thing in here for each of the textures that goes into it. And these are all automatically set by the terrain system, which is why you can't see them here in the inspector, because you don't need to. One of the things that you can see are the little textures for the lighting ramp and the rim ramp. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. One of the things you need to do with this is type in this pound pragma target 3.0, because otherwise it just won't load for some reason. This essentially, like, if you don't have this here, it'll tell you that it's using too many textures to be supported. I don't know what this changes, but whatever. Unity has some quirks. There's all this in here, and then these are something that not even Unity's documentation goes over, is this dependency part, and this is specific to the terrain shaders. And okay, what the heck's it doing now? There we go. Yeah, you can see dependency, add pass shader, and then you see here is Nythra terrain add pass, which is right here. This is more or less a copy of the previous shader. However, essentially, because of the number of textures that the terrain system can use, it essentially needs to run it through two shaders. So you have the first pass and then the add pass. Which that's kind of the only thing you need to keep in mind with this. Other than that, you can, essentially add things in here like you would any other shader. Like I have the lighting ramp in here, so this works just like any of the other cell shaders that I'm using. So yeah, that's that big thing explained. And like I said, I'm still working with it, but I'm liking the results so far. And actually, even once you've stamped in some height maps like this, you can go in, say, the smooth tool. Yeah, just kind of essentially just like add some erosion to this. Flatten it out. There we go. This kind of makes it look a little a bit nicer and more natural, but you still have the stamper handling most of this. And then even once you've done that, you can just go back in here, go to spawn controller, and have it respawn the textures. And there's that. So yeah, this is a really handy tool. I really like this one. And I'm hoping to do a lot more with this. Create some more height maps that I can stamp onto terrains. Because this is... I think this is really nice for creating sort of an outside area. And right now, like, you know, at the bottom level here, it just has some sand. But I'm going to be changing this. When I finally get to it, it'll just be... essentially, I'll have like a cloud layer kind of right before the base, just to make it seem more like this is actually, like, you know, kind of a branch that's suspended in the air. So that's the terrain system. Now that I've shown that off, into File, Open Scene. Let's go back to one of the previous areas I was working on, which I'm probably going to now remake using the whole terrain system that we've got. Yeah, the one downside about the terrain system is that you can't do overhangs like this, but I imagine I should be able to essentially just kind of chop this out, like go into the model that this is part of, cut this piece out, and then just sort of place it on to the new terrain. And yes, Ken is my real name. You should have you should know that. But anyways, if I go into here, things don't seem too different. However, the AI is now done entirely differently. I go back into scene view here, select a trickle. Go down, and right here you'll see this new thing here, a flow script controller, and also this Blackboard script. If I go into here, I believe, yep, canvas, you can see all of this here. And this is another tool that I had gotten, and this is a little add-on called FlowScript. And this is essentially just a visual way of doing scripting, and normally that's not something that I'm extremely good at. Like I've tried what was it? Unreal, I tried their whole system where they have visual scripting and wasn't exactly for me. However, I've been laying out AI using flowcharts and then essentially kind of translating them into script. But this just lets me cut out the middleman, which is really nice, actually. Right now, it doesn't do anything too fancy. This is just a recreation of essentially the script that I'd already had as part of them. But you can see how everything flows together here. Has some switch conditions. And you see here, there's this wander delay. And this just controls how long it takes before they decide to go in another direction. And I did also change their animation behaviors a little bit. One thing I should do is, if you see how when they move sometimes they'll, even if they're mid-hop, they'll kind of stop dead in the air. I should try to find a way to fix that. I'm thinking of possibly having the animation speed up if they're stopped, but you know, they're still in the air. So, but anyways, this here works pretty well. And even if I go back into the game and let's ran for me. Yeah, it does pretty much just the same thing that it did before. It's just been recreated now to be this essentially work a little bit better. And I don't know why the game window keeps popping out when I do that. Kind of an annoying thing, but oh well. But yeah, this is the stuff that I have been learning. And actually, even in the canvas, let's see here. If I can just bring up a trickle here. One annoying thing about this is that, like, you can create a flow script that can be used by multiple objects, but the blackboard variables here don't stay with it. So you need to recreate this for everything that you want to attach this to, which is obviously kind of annoying. I don't know why they don't have something that you can do to sort of take these with you. But it's nice because you can create your own functions, and you can access scripts that you've already made. So, you know, this right here can access the move input of the entity control script. And actually, one other thing you can do is this right here is called a macro. This is kind of like a function that you can use between these scripts. And you can just drag and drop these in. You can control how many inputs they have. So you can see here, this is a random wander one. All that this does is this takes in just where the enemy started out, the radius of the distance that you want them to be able to move in. And then all it does is it checks nav mesh around that area within sort of a a random amount. And then if it hits something, then it goes ahead and sets that. Pretty simple. Oop. No, not what I wanted. Yeah, did not need that. Did not need that either. Go back there. And I know I created a unique node of my own. I'm trying to remember what it was. Here, was it this? No. Here it is. Now I remember. Now I found it. Yeah, this is. You can make your own custom nodes for this just using code. And this was just one that I made for finding a random position. And this is just a remake of some previous code that I'd had in the old AI script. It just takes a start position, a radius, and then using that, it just kind of selects a random spot within those parameters and then gives you the value. Pretty simple. Just when you do it, you need to make sure to add in the proper using statements above. You need to have flowcanvas.nodes, paradoxnotation.design, and then you also need to make sure to set this right. You need to make sure that you have set this as a callable function node. But get that down and you are golden. So anyway, let's go back. Oop. Here we are. And I just realized I have a few extra terrains in here. I just want to make sure which one this is and then delete the ones that I don't need. Let's see here. Delete that. Okay. And actually, let's go ahead. Drag and drop that into areas. And then put it in there. There we go. Keep that together so it doesn't get lost. And actually, I forgot, one nice thing about the Unity terrain system is some of the things that it lets you do. Let's see here, if you go in here to paint details, and you can see here, add in things like grass. And now let's add a grass texture. I have one in here that I'd already made, and definitely fits more with this cartoony aesthetic. Is there lots of images? Here we go. And max height 2. Billboard. Edit. Oop. Do that. Here we go. Coming out a little bright here. That looks a little better. And note for max height, I'm going to put down 0.5, and for minimum height, and let's do the same thing for this. Oops. 5. Actually, you know what? Let's just 0.5 and 1. There we go. So yeah, you can add in little details like this. That's kind of a nice thing you do. I'm probably gonna undo these for now. Don't really need them at the moment. So now. I'm just looking at some things here really quick. You can see these better with the lower lighting. But everything else shows up darker. Let me just mess with something here. Yeah, I've been wondering about changing some things with these shaders. Makes some things look okay, but makes some things kind of blindingly bright. That's actually a lot better. Just go into a new scene here. I just want to test something here. Just look at something again. Now, why does it look so different in here? I don't know why it starts me out down there. the heck is different? Okay, now everything is kind of evened out a bit more. Do a new scene again, just... Just wondering why this makes everything darker. Let's just try maybe bumping it up just a little bit here. Yeah, that looks pretty good now. And apparently Bruiser's being a pest in the other room. I do think I want to change the lighting in here. I want so that the light is kind of shining at the player. I do feel though, like with this low lighting, that the shading's a bit harsher though. Not really sure if this looks fine or not. Feels like this... Feels a bit like this lower light is a bit harsher, but at the same time looks better with all these other details. So yeah, the shading's now harsher. See what this does. Not quite. And that is way too bright. Same difference. You know what? There we go. That's a little better. I like how this looks now. There we go. Now that color blends a little better. Yeah, lighting's always such a tricky thing. Actually, the effect for the eyes is pretty easy. You can see here the eyes actually two parts. There's these sort of lenses over here with the actual iris and everything, and then there's this entire back section. And the eyes are just on a couple of armatures that just move them around. And then just the eye texture is partially transparent. It's just this part right here for the main part, and then just to get the slight shine on it, it just adds on this one over top. And then it just takes a color value there. Yeah, emission is also how I get the slight the rim lighting on the very edges. And also emission is how I get the hair shine. Actually, let me just look at something in here real quick. I am thinking about some customizations like that. Takes back some of the shadows there. Yeah, you can change that. Yeah. You just go in here and just you know, like adjust the scale. There is going to be. It brings things back a little too much. Let's try this. Okay, and that just makes things really, like, kind of metallic. Yeah, no, I don't think this is too bad. Yeah, there's already a lot of customization options in here. See, if I bring in Kala, he actually uses all the same sort of pieces and parts here. And you're going to swap this out. So yeah, you can see here I could just swap out the mesh, swap out the texture. fact, if I were to swap out the texture right here, so yeah, it's literally that easy. And yeah, he just has the default eyes right there. So when I actually bring in the mesh, the eyes are half shut normally. I changed them for spirit alone here. And I might change the way these bunches of grass look, though. In fact, more than likely will. Try. Let's just look at this in play mode one more time. And I have to keep in mind that sort of pure white off into a distance isn't going to be as visible when this is done, because that'll be most likely obscured by, you know, various scenery pieces and whatnot. Let me just bring this back down again just to... Oop. This is a little bit easier on the eyes. And if I go in, I'm gonna, oop. And color doesn't look bad in there. Oop. Not what I wanted. And that still makes everything really dark. I'm actually kind of good with these graphics. Kind of bright, but not too bright. Yeah, and later on I'll definitely add more so like height variation into the terrain, kind of like, you know, kind of bumps and ridges and just areas where it's uneven, so it's not all just completely flat. But hey, I think this was a pretty successful stream. Got to show off a lot of things. Got to change a few things, and you got to see me tinker around with stuff, which I'd say that's like 99% of what game development is. But anyways, I'm glad you all stuck with me today. And I'm just going to call the stream here. So thanks y'all. Thanks for showing up, and hopefully I will be back next week with more.